Everyone, welcome back. And for this section, we're going to do a little panel discussion. I'm your host. My name is Jeff Marushak. I'm a senior solutions architect on our Department of Defense Air Force team. And me and Mazen talked earlier, but Mazen, you want to introduce yourself and kick things off?
Sure. This is Mazen Laban. I'm a senior manager at AWS IoT, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So who are our guests today, the rest of this panel?
You guys would like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Robert Andres, Chief Strategy Officer at EuroTech.
Hello, my name is Konstantin Dochkov, Senior Business Manager with Industrial IoT at AWS.
Great, welcome.
Welcome. So thank you, Jeff, for having us. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk today with the panel about how AWS IoT is pushing cloud services all the way to the edge and pushing the boundaries of the cloud services all the way to the edge with our IoT offering. And we're also with AWS IoT, we're bringing a lot of the specialized services, specialized IoT services from the cloud and the edge all the way to the far edge to accelerate use cases for our customers.
And that's a recurring theme all throughout today, bringing services closer to the customer. Absolutely.
Exactly. So many customers are looking to unlock more capabilities on the edge, and they're looking for IoT to bridge that. And we will also be discussing today in this panel how AWS, along with our rich ecosystem of software and services and partners represented here on the panel, we are bringing value to our customers, and we're making it easier for companies to build and innovate using AWS IoT.
Gotcha. Well, Robert, Konstantin, Mazen, thanks for being here for this panel. This is really exciting. And I'm excited for Robert. You're the only non-AWS employee that has been here for Hybrid Cloud and Edge Day. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Pleasure.
So let's start off with you then. Tell us about EuroTech and how is EuroTech deploying and developing some IoT services?
Yeah, so EuroTech is a company that clearly comes from the OT side of things, right?
Yep.
So we've been doing edge computing for 30 plus years. Not just in the sense of building purpose-built hardware for rugged, for like demanding environment, but also software stacks in the IoT segment, building solutions for a few vertical markets. So that includes industrial automation as probably the largest one, but also energy and utilities big time, medical companies that we support with IoT solutions, and then transportation. So we do a lot of things that are actually mobile and have their own challenges.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's something I've been trying to add in, the whole difference between IT and OT networks and how they typically have been separated, but we're seeing more and more use cases where that data needs to cross that boundary. So that's really exciting. Robert, can you tell us how EuroTech is helping some industrial customers with IoT Edge products? Especially, we've been talking throughout the day, we've been mentioning AWS IoT Greengrass, which is going to help you run some of those IT services closer to the edge. Can you fill us in what EuroTech's doing?
Yeah, maybe I have to explain a little bit where the magic source of EuroTech is in all that. And it starts all with an application framework that we have at the edge, which again has been built with like 30 plus years experience in doing edge computing. That means field protocols are there. There is a no-code environment that allows you to program the edge. There is a capability not just to have the existing field protocols there, but also custom ones to be added, which is something that we have to do all the time. All of that with a clear thinking that at the end you have to think about the total cost of ownership of these edge solutions. And that requires full lifecycle management, even down to, let's say, the firmware change of a modem, right? That is remote somewhere. You cannot drive out there and have that done with a USB stick. That has to be there. And security is another extreme element.
You mentioned firmware. What about a certificate renewal or recycle?
That's
Absolutely.
a very essential part, and I would come to that a bit later probably. But also in the story when we talk about Greengrass, right? Look, if you look at Greengrass, that's probably the ideal way to connect back to the cloud, right? So there is so much seamless integration at this point. So by doing a deep integration, and that's really what we do, we are not just certifying Greengrass on our hardware, right, and get into the catalog. What we actually do is we integrate with Greengrass. So in a seamless experience, a customer can, in a no-code environment, pick a weird OT protocol, connect it in a wire graph with Greengrass, and gets the device shadows build of the asset that is southbound automatically in the cloud side. So I think that's a strong value proposition.
Especially if that that item is far away, somewhere remote, just like you just said. We want to see what the current state should be or what we think it should be.
Yes.
And maybe when that connectivity is intermittent and it does reconnect, it can update based on the shadow. Absolutely. So awesome. Thank you very much, Robert. Konstantin, let's move over to you. We see a lot of industrial companies going through digital transformation, but one of the things that, at least here with AWS and IoT, we talk about getting data, sometimes near real-time data, and then making a business decision off of that data. So can you share an example how maybe like a customer example, how AWS IoT services are helping with that digital transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. AWS helps customers to unlock data from connected machines, equipment, sensors, and take targeted actions to drive business outcomes. A common challenge for industrial customers lies in the diversity of industrial equipment that they use. Commonly, they have equipment that is 20, 30 years old. And then they rely on various industrial protocols and data drivers for data acquisition. Customers also face challenges with organizing unstructured data from multiple siloed data sources. They also struggle with managing those environments, managing industrial assets, edge infrastructure, IoT devices and data across remote sites, oftentimes with limited connectivity.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of those legacy pieces of equipment, they're probably sending data in their own way, and they've been doing it for 20 years. And maybe this other piece of equipment from a different company is been doing it for 15 years. It's sending its data its own way. And how do we bridge all that together?
That's exactly right. That's really the variety of multiple equipment from multiple vendors, variety of protocols, all of it. Now, all of these challenges get only emphasized at scale. Customers oftentimes will start, small with a proof of concept or a proof of value, but then at some point they need to start, scaling inside the facility, across facilities, and it becomes really challenging for them. So an example that brings to life how AWS helps industrial customers overcome these challenges is an industrial holding company with dozens of business lines across a variety of industries, each with unique manufacturing processes and requirements. Their project started as a corporate initiative to capture business analytics to gain insights across hundreds of facilities. They wanted to collect, normalize, and standardize the data at a site level as well as across sites. So that they can derive meaningful information and visibility.
Well, because it's not uncommon for maybe one plant to be making something with the piece of machinery from one manufacturer, and then another plant doing the same thing but a different manufacturer, maybe sending different data.
Right.
Maybe it looks a little bit different. So I could see where you want to standardize that.
Right. So this was, their main goal. Now, as we dove deeper with them, it became clear that operational staff can also benefit locally from that data through dashboards that would help them monitor the state of their production lines, that would help them to track how they are progressing against output targets, as well as to monitor how they are doing against standardized KPIs. As an example, specifically in their case, they were looking at overall equipment effectiveness, availability, performance, quality. So while they started this project as a corporate initiative, today they're deriving value not only at the corporate level, but also locally for their operational stuff.
Well, that's interesting you bring up OEE, because that's not a figure that comes right off of a piece of machinery. That's calculated.
Right.
It's a complex calculation.
Right.
And we've been setting up different manufacturers, different types of data from different pieces of machinery. It's not. It sounds easy. Oh, you just calculate OEE.
Right.
It's not that easy. It's complex. And so if we can help make that calculation, which requires as near real time as possible, makes that OEE even more valuable. If we can help with that, that's very valuable.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Thanks, Konstantin. Mazen, over to you. Besides the industrial segment, are there other examples where you see IoT at the edge? Maybe something in automotive.
Yes, actually, there's a couple trends we can talk about here that we're seeing in the market. One of the biggest trends that is ever growing is the electrification of vehicles, right? So when people think about the electrification of vehicles, they think about the EV vehicle itself, the car itself, the technology that goes in it. But to support having this massive growth of electric vehicle all over the world, there is a need also for a network of chargers, right? Network of chargers that need to support that both in the home of the buyer of that vehicle, or in the public space. So that's one of the biggest trend we see.
I think it's interesting. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we have gone from the first time you see a charging area, you're like, oh, cool, that's a charging area, to now a majority of people are concerned where the charging areas are because they need to use them. Before it was like a boutique thing. Oh, that's cool, charging area. Now it's more and more important.
Exactly.
Everyone, more and more people are looking for these, so they're important.
Yeah. So these chargers are actually connected devices. That's what they are. So they need to be managed. The infrastructure need to be managed. Their downtime need to be managed. How they're operating need to be managed, and that information need to be passed along to the operator of the network, but also to the consumer.
Well, I want to know if that charging station that I'm driving out of my way to get is it operational or not?
Yeah. What's the point of having them connected if you can use the data for something useful? So there is the aspect of the manufacturer and the operator, and the aspect of the consumer. Now there is another trend that also is as exciting is the connected homes, the smart homes per se. When you hear about smart home, people think about also the devices that people buy and add to their home to make it more smarter, right? But in actuality, all these devices are connected devices. Yep. They are producing data, and then they need to be managed. With AWS IoT, we're actually providing this capability without having the homeowner or the whoever's is running the facilities, whether it's a smart home or a smart building, to have their own infrastructure, right? So that's another big trend that has continued to grow, and many homes actually are coming pre-built smart homes, pre-built connected. Right, and that has layers and layers of not just complexity, but of the additional features that are available through AWS.
Yeah, so I think there is some robotic vacuum company that is analyzing the data of my house when my cats tend to shed more versus less because they're getting that data. But more importantly, it's a connected home topic. It's just really nice to be able to, if I need to shut off my water main valve right now, to be able to hit a button on my phone so nothing happens. And about the vacuums, that tends to be seen as one of the most popular smart home things that gets used as often as it does, because they work so well. So I can see those are great examples. So Robert, let's go back to you for EuroTech. Can you share how AWS helped EuroTech differentiate yourselves with your IoT services?
Yeah, so AWS was an important cloud partner for us from the very beginning. So even our first IoT platform that was launched like 12, 13 years ago, was launched on AWS. So there's a long tradition, and we have technical stuff that is very deeply engaged with AWS from that perspective. And then over the last couple of years, we expanded what we've done from a cloud device management platform to the edge, and do direct integrations from the edge into IoT Core and AWS IoT Greengrass. So as I mentioned before. So AWS for us, clearly, a lot of it has to do with scaling. And if I say it's very easy, like scaling could be so many different things, right? That's from a geographic scale, right? So it was for us very important from the beginning that globally we have ways to connect our customers. But it's also the ability to connect billions of devices, right? It is the offering on the services side that adds to this so nicely, and the very flexible way that this is used, which plays very nicely into our offering. And then in the end, since its security is very important for us, AWS provides a very trusted platform approach. So also that fits in a very positive way. And last but not least, and I think that's a very non-technical kind of thing, the partner ecosystem of AWS has welcomed us and had allowed us to thrive, and is tying us actually deeper and deeper to AWS. So we actually closely feel to be part of a family here.
Yeah, and I like the scaling portion of that because, and it goes without being said, anything IoT, you have to expect the scale. So even if you start off with a proof of concept, and I have an idea about this, let's just say a vacuum, and now how many millions of vacuums are out there. Each one of those things is a thing, reporting data. And as you talked about firmware updates earlier, we talked about SSL, TLS certificate renewals and rotation. All that has to be managed. And that's one thing if you've built two little POC robotic vacuums in your lab, but with millions of them, that scalability comes into play.
Can I just add one more thought to this?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we've done over the last couple of months is, and we actually had a very interesting joint presentation done at Embedded World, is one of the major OT shows out there, was zero-touch onboarding with Greengrass. So, and if we talk about scaling, that's another aspect of scaling, right? So how do you get, with least effort, in the most secure way, your assets in the field and the devices that connect them into the cloud?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's great to hear, Robert. Thank you. Konstantin, over to you. Along similar lines, do you have some specific examples where industrial customers have benefited from this scale that we've been talking about with AWS?
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen customers, build and deploy global industrial data platforms in a matter of months. In fact, our customer Yara International, a Norwegian chemical company, was at this same event last year, sharing the beginning of their journey. They created a digital production platform that serves as the digital core to capture and analyze new and existing industrial data to gain insights. The platform enables Yara to predict product quality and composition, to improve the balancing of site utilities, as well as to detect when machines need maintenance or repair to keep production at optimal efficiency levels. Since last year, they rapidly scaled up their deployment of the digital production platform to 120 production units across 22 sites and 1 mine. And this is globally. This spans locations in Europe, Asia Pacific, South America, and North America.
Well, to be able to see those business outcomes, to realize those business outcomes, and add that with scalability, it's going to snowball and allow customers to expand in that sort of nature.
Exactly. And, the reason why they were able to expand so quickly was because they took this centralized approach where they enabled every facility, every site to benefit from the same platform investment.
Gotcha.
And they centralized the management of the platform and deployment, and they also, which also includes deployments to the edge, so that now they can centrally maintain the applications that are relevant to each production site.
Oh, that's great. So these are great stories. Exciting to see how AWS IoT is making differences. And we talked about OEE and these business outcomes. And I'm sure you guys see this. Customers don't come and say, hey, I want AWS IoT Core. Can you sell me that? They want a business decision. I want to do predictive maintenance on propellers. I don't want someone looking at these and making a human mistake. I want predictive maintenance. And that's where IoT comes in. The AWS IoT services come to help enable those business outcomes. So it's really exciting to hear all these. Konstantin, let me ask you, how is AWS expanding the power of the cloud to the industrial edge? And what kind of impact is it having on our customers' businesses?
Yeah, I mean, the benefits of what we are doing for industrial customers at the edge really impacts many aspects of their businesses. AWS provides an industrial edge software purpose-built to collect, organize, process, and monitor equipment data at the edge on premises. It enables factory operators to get visibility and insights into their equipment data and make decisions that help them improve equipment uptime, product quality, or process efficiencies. And kind of to clarify here, obviously our edge software is installed on local hardware such as industrial gateways or industrial PCs. Now, typically this could be a third-party hardware or, for example, AWS Outpost or AWS Snow family of devices. And the software, once deployed locally, then enables customers to collect, data from various sources, pre-process that data close to where it's generated, trigger local actions, and then send high-value data to the cloud, oftentimes pre-aggregated, filtered, pre-calculated.
Yeah, those near-time, maybe it's like at per second interval. Maybe we're using that for the near-term decisions locally, but maybe we just send every 10 seconds up to the cloud.
Right, that's right. For central visibility, for additional business insights, analytics, advanced analytics, including data samples for machine learning in the cloud. So all of that. And one point to clarify as well, since our software runs locally on premises, if connectivity is interrupted during intermittent connectivity, all of these applications will continue to work. The data is usable on premises, so all of that. To give you maybe an example, Coca-Cola EuroTech is one of the largest bottlers of Coca-Cola products. And they have been able to improve process efficiencies and environmental sustainability. They have saved 20% on energy and 9% on water annually, while optimizing the so-called clean-in-place process. That's a critical sanitation process that allows to clean the interior surfaces of production lines and equipment without disassembly. So previously, they relied on analog processes for measuring and monitoring, routine process tracking and maintenance. During those routine tracking and even maintenance, they oftentimes relied, were looking for potential issues or challenges in the process by hand. And also, the other thing, they relied on manually keeping track of how much energy, water, or other materials were used during production. To optimize their operations and their processes, they decided to digitalize their shop floor and manufacturing processes. and implement a digital twin solution. Only within 2 months, they were able actually to start to build out an analytics solution for their clean-in-place process and started gaining insights that helped them obviously lead these optimizations. They used AWS services. For example, they used AWS IoT Sidewise, Greengrass as well.
Well, just kind of what I was saying earlier, unfortunately, humans make mistakes, and no matter how good you are, when you stare at something for so long or for so many years, you're checking this part, mistakes are made. And, analog is cool when you're listening to music, but if you're relying on analog like instruments, they need to be calibrated every so often. And so it's just nice to be able to have a digital like thermometer or a digital temperature gauge, digital pressure gauge, vibrations. That's all feeding this digital twin to be able to make a business decision based off that near real-time data.
Right.
All right, great. Thanks, Konstantin. Mazen, let's go over to you. Kind of a similar question. We talked about the EV charging stations. Electric cars are less of a boutique item. More and more people are getting excited about them. Do you have any other kind of specific customer stories around that to see how customers are benefiting from, maybe AWS IoT services?
Absolutely. We actually have a handful of customers that are using AWS and AWS IoT for their EV charging and their EV network. One of those examples is Wallbox. Wallbox is a global company. They are based in Spain. And Wallbox, what they do is they produce both the residential and the public charging stations, as we discussed earlier. And what Wallbox have done is they converted their entire IT system. That's including the manufacturing, the design, the device and grid management. They convert all of that to AWS. So with that conversion, they are aiming to revolutionize the industry, right? But also what they're aiming to increase the adoption of the EV vehicles with access to these chargers, obviously.
Yeah, we always talk about the data, and from a consumer side, we talked earlier. We want to know where the closest charging station is. We want to make sure it's working. But from the company side, Wallbox, I'm sure they want to see which charging stations are getting used the most. Is this one that we put out in this certain area, is it not getting used so much? Or using this data, let's decide where the best place is to get higher utilization. So I could see data is important for both the business and the consumer in that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we maybe expand a little bit more on how the Wallbox is using that for to manage their network. So what Wallbox is doing, they are using Managed MQTT with AWS IoT Core to connect their devices efficiently to the cloud. With that approach, they are able to securely and automatically manage these fleets. Now, what does the managed service do for them? What it allows them to do, it allows them to scale their network. So, for example, at night when everybody's home and there is a demand generated by all these chargers, they want to be able to scale that to that demand. A managed service with AWS IoT provide that capability so that they're able to meet the need of their customers.
I never thought about it that way, but if you said a company is creating both the consumer grade, something that's in your garage, and both a public charging station, different parts of the day, each one of those is going to be used at a different point. And
how do you manage the power? How do you manage the energy? So that's grid management essentially.
That's exciting.
But also what they're doing is Wallbox is using AWS to power their consumer-facing application in a data-driven way. And what that means is that they want to provide all that information, as you were mentioning, all that information in a friendly manner to their consumer, so the consumer can see it at the palm of their hand. So that includes if they want to see the status of their charge directly. If they have a Wallbox in their home, they can manage that device, but also have access to the grid. So since Wallbox is using AWS to manage the grid and manage all these machines, now you want to be able to see that entire map of the devices around you, check the availability, check the downtimes, and all of that. That is also provided with the support of AWS.
Yeah, that's great. It's nice to see decisions can be made at any layer, at the specific item layer, or maybe at the county layer or the state layer, seeing how utilization, et cetera, in any way making those business decisions to help the customer. Robert, let's go back to you. Could you elaborate for our audience how your partnership, EuroTech and AWS, how is it expanding, and what's new? What do you got up your sleeve? What's EuroTech going to wow us with coming up?
Well, as I said before, there is a couple of fundamental challenges still out in this whole IoT world, right? One of them is clearly on the security side. So as I hinted before, we have a blueprint done for zero-touch provisioning, which is a major challenge. But we also drive this whole concept of a secure edge in a different dimension today. And we see a growing regulatory and compliance requirements thing building up around us that is going to force not just the manufacturers, but also the operators of the equipment and the solutions to think a lot more about security, right? At the same time, demanding security frameworks come up. So what we've done is actually we've done a complete edge stack certification with demanding security frameworks like PSA level 1, like IEC 62443, and now work on getting even the side with the AWS components covered as well. So that's one vision that we have, really, to get to a very solidly secured edge at this point, right? At the same time, it's expanding this ease of integration, right? We were talking about Sitewise. We were talking about, there's a whole world of cloud services that can be used. Some of them more specific for manufacturing environments, some of them more interesting for fleets. But the seamless integration into them is something that we want to take away as a challenge for our customers.
Well, and we talked about those legacy pieces of equipment, maybe using slightly different protocols. Mazen talked about the managed MQTT service, and that MQTT is slightly an industry standard, but not everything is MQTT.
No, southbound certainly not, right? Yeah. And as I said before, and that's more like our heritage that we bring to the table, right, on the OT side. If you've done IoT over the last 15 years, then you had, and still in the future that's the case, you have to deal with proprietary protocols. You go into medical, right? So they either look a little bit like the industrial ones, or pretty much are industrial protocols, or very private, right? Yeah. Very proprietary. An ability to integrate them into the same system easily is absolutely a necessity, because how can you build a system for a whole company, right? Including electrification, including machinery, and so on and so forth, to get to that digital transformation process that allows you to be sustainable and circular and all these kind of things, right? So these capabilities essentially add, right, to the capabilities that an IoT core or a Greengrass with all the powerful world behind it brings with it. And again, mating these things closer is clearly one of the areas where we constantly invest.
Yeah, and there are good reasons for IP. If someone wants to keep things on their own protocol, so there's a cost to that. So as long as you play ball, then go ahead and do that. And it sounds like EuroTech's going to help bring that together. So that's great to know.
Partners alike, right? So with open architectures, these kind of things are easier to battle with than with very closed systems.
Great. So thanks, Robert. So Mazen, let's go to you. Similar question about AWS IoT services. What's new? I was really involved with AWS IoT Twin Maker. It's kind of like the thing I'm excited to play with. But what's new? What's coming? what might we hear about more, if not today, or maybe at reInvent later this year?
Yeah, sure. Let me start first before we talk about some of these upcoming services and so on. Let me just talk a little bit about some trends that we're seeing in the industry. What we're seeing in the industry right now is a big shift toward verticalized solutions rather than horizontal IoT offering.
Can you explain that?
Yes, of course. So verticalized solution meaning solutions that are intended for a specific purpose, for specific use cases, or a group of use cases, or vertical like industrial or smart vehicles, what have you. With that verticalization, what's doing to the rest of the ecosystem essentially is forcing the software and the services to adapt to this verticalization, right? So AWS is doing the shift as well, and we're making the verticalization our focus, our North Star. So as an example, we have within IoT, we have IoT Sidewise and IoT TwinMaker specifically focused on the industrial space. AWS IoT Fleetwise to manage fleets and ingest data from the fleets.
The automotive
vertical. Mode
Yep.
of the automotive, and so on and so forth. So that is one of the bigger shift. And you mentioned what's coming, what's new. So we recently announced the AWS IoT Core for Sidewalk, for Amazon Sidewalk. So that's an integration. Probably a lot of people know the AWS IoT Core, but then Amazon Sidewalk's one of the features. Many people that have Alexa at home, they have an option to enable that as a wonderful service. So we've integrated that with AWS IoT Core, and we continue seeing more trends toward that level of integration to offer more for our customers in a vertical manner.
Well, because when we talk about IoT devices, they can be connected a number of different ways, sometimes straight Ethernet or Wi-Fi, but we see some of the more remote pieces of IoT connected with LoRaWAN, some sort of connectivity that way. That's in itself is a problem. So if we can utilize that sidewalk network for a temperature sensor, sending back a data point every 5 minutes, if we don't have to worry about that sidewalk network, that just makes it easier for the customer to work on their application as opposed to figuring out how to get that temperature probe to send data into the region.
That's right, absolutely.
So sidewalk, anything else you want to talk about?
I think, verticalization, I can't emphasize this enough, right? Because that is something that we keep hearing from the customers. So the customers, they don't come out and say, give me an IoT solution.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not what the first thing that comes to mind. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, give me an outcome, a business outcome. I have a problem, help me solve it, right? So the requirement from hyperscalers like AWS and the ecosystem of partners and the ecosystem of ISVs and software providers to adapt to that kind of outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we solve a problem with preventative maintenance, right? They're not asking for the sensor that is sitting on that machine that they're trying to predict, whether it's going to break down or not. They're asking for, when is it going to break down?
Yeah.
Okay. What can I do about it? So when you build it up from work it backward from what the customer problem down to the actual solution, you're essentially solving the whole stack. Right.
Yep.
And that's what customers are looking for because they don't want to. They want to bother or worry about what goes in the middle. Right. So that is the one of the biggest things that we're making them our focus this year.
And that verticalization is to help that exactly to.
Yeah, work as Amazon. We work backward.
Yes.
From a customer problem and from a customer need. And we believe that this is a big customer need that needs to be met.
Yeah, and when we announced AWS IoT TwinMaker, whenever you read or hear about that, what is the definition of a digital twin? And it ends with providing real-time data to affect business outcomes. I mean, that's where it all starts. It has to start with a business outcome.
Simple the description of that, and the name is very indicative too.
It's not about how do we transmit data through a whole bunch of sidewalk Alexa. I mean, no one cares about that. People want to know, when's my heart rate above a certain time? When does this train engine need to replace an axle because maybe some remote camera saw that it's getting a little bit hotter than the others, preventive maintenance and everything like that. So everyone, Robert, Constantine, Mazen, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome. Thank you, Robert, EuroTech. It was great to see you and hear about what you guys are doing with AWS. I'd love to see more about that partnership. I think that's going to be very fruitful for both of us. And so everyone, we are done with the IoT segment. Next up is going to be how we can simplify multi-cloud operations with AWS. So after this quick break, we'll be talking to Rich, and we'll be right back after this. Thank you.